But for more, we are now joined in studio by our host and analyst, Calev Ben-David, as well as on the line by Ariel Kahana, diplomatic correspondent at Israel Hayom newspaper. Thank you both so much for being with us. I want to get into the pressure we're seeing from the United States on the war so far. I'm going to open with you, Ariel, because this is coming against the backdrop of Benny Gantz set to visit the United States and be received by the government there. Walk us through what's expected from that visit and the sort of snub we're seeing in local politics because of that.
Hello, Ariel. Thanks for having me. By the way, it looks Ariel is a quite popular name in this show. In any case, Benny Gantz's visit in the United States in Washington today is very important. And I think what the administration, senior administration officials will hear from him is quite similar to what Netanyahu is saying here in Hebrew. In other words, there are no significant gaps, as far as I know, between Netanyahu and Gantz when it comes to the issues of the war. Now, you are right. You said there are political differences between the both because we know that actually they challenge one each other. But when it comes to substance, so Benny Gantz is supportive of going on with the war to defeat Hamas, just as Netanyahu is. Benny Gantz is against a recognition of a Palestinian state, one-sided by the Americans, just as Netanyahu is. Benny Gantz believes that the war, there should be a way, whether diplomatic or military, to push Hezbollah far from the northern border. So when it comes to the issues, you do not see so much differences between the both. And I guess that the main outcome of Benny Gantz's visit today in Washington will be a kind of an Israeli consensus, which to me looks as very important when it comes to Israel's interest regarding the war and the diplomatic difficulties you mentioned, including the comments made by Vice President Harris.
Ariel, given what you just said, does the American administration believe there's a difference in policy between Benjamin Netanyahu and Benny Gantz? And given that we're hearing about a breakdown of communications between Benjamin Netanyahu and the administration, a report, and I believe it was Sky News, saying that Biden refused to even take Netanyahu's calls, is this just personal egos?
So, first of all, regarding Biden and Netanyahu, at least the Prime Minister office denied that report and said that actually Netanyahu is ill, he's under flu, and therefore, in any case, didn't even try to talk with the president. Now, I guess Americans want to hear, face to face from Gantz, where is he standing? And therefore, that's the reason I believe, as I said before, why this visit is important. Now, you're taking me, and right, you're taking me to politics, because Netanyahu, as we know, didn't want Benny Gantz to go to Washington. But again, it's a little bit, I would say, absurd, because if Gantz is saying more or less the same as Netanyahu does, so why wouldn't the Prime Minister want someone else to bring the same messages to Washington, not mentioning that we are talking about General Gantz, which we know the Americans like much more than Bibi. So when it comes to Israel interests, I believe Netanyahu should support that visit. And I, as you suggested, I think it's personal, it's ego, it's politics. And to me, that's the main reason why Netanyahu didn't want Benny Gantz to go to this trip.
I mean, you bring up a very good point right there. Because there's no tension between Gantz and the U.S. administration, using him as a sort of foreign official that you can do the exact same policy but have none of the interpersonal conflict would only advance Israel's interest. Does it not actually harm Netanyahu to try to make this about him rather than allowing this to be a deniable asset in a sense?
So Netanyahu is, I would say, afraid, and by the way, maybe he's someone, in some aspect, he's right about that. Netanyahu has a lot of experience of the American administrations who are getting involved in Israeli politics and actually trying to push him from being prime minister. It happened with Clinton, it happened with Obama, and in his eyes, maybe it's beginning to happen now. So that's probably one of the reasons why he didn't want this visit to happen. And to him, I'm trying to describe the way he is saying it. He is a prime minister. He is a leader. So why would the administration talk to a senior minister and not talk to the prime minister? So he has his skeptics about it, and I get that. But yet, at least in my eyes, when it comes to national interests of Israel, considering the circumstances we are, to me, this visit is all in all is positive, because again, Gantz will probably bring to the administration more or less the same messages as Netanyahu would.
Yeah. I just want to add in, but first of all, I agree with Ariel that there's not a big difference ideologically between Benny Gantz and Benjamin Netanyahu on the conduct of the war, but it's the tone that comes out of the prime minister, out of this government, the Israeli government, that's annoying the Americans. I'll give you an example. We have been reporting that the vice president, Kamala Harris, gave this speech where she called for an immediate ceasefire, but made clear then it was part of the 6 weeks ceasefire. Itamar Ben-Gvir, the national security minister, tweeting in English this morning, "It's time to destroy Hamas, Kamala." Now, calling the vice president of the United States by her first name is a sign of disrespect. And that's the kind of thing that really, I think, ticks off the Biden administration. And it's the kind of thing that they want Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to be tougher on his own ministers, not to make their job politically harder, because we know that the Biden administration is facing pressure from within its own Democratic Party, from the left and progressive wing, on how the war. So this is a signal. There's no question about it, that by welcoming Benny Gantz, he's meeting Kamala Harris today. He's meeting Jake Sullivan, and we don't know if President Biden himself may drop in on one of those meetings, maybe with Jake Sullivan. It's a sign of this. I'm sorry, Ariel?
Probably not. Yeah, I'm saying that probably not, because Biden, at least I read, he's in Camp David, so he can't join those meetings.
All right, so then maybe he won't. But so clearly, though, by welcoming into the White House, it's a sign they're sending a message, a political message to Prime Minister Netanyahu, less necessary about the substance, about how his government is handling things, than as much about the tone of it and how they're going about it, because it's making it politically difficult for President Biden domestically.